Hello, everyone, and good afternoon, and welcome to another author interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia, the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill himself, and joining us today is a returning guest back on the show 6 months later, which is probably now the quickest time I've had a returning guest back on the show, and I'm so excited to have her here. Now, if you remember this guest, she lives in Edmonton. I probably butchered that again. And now living on a farm north of Calgary, where she loves to tell stories, but has a saying, if there's a bright center to the publishing universe, I live on the planet it's furthest from. And once more, apologies to George Lucas and the Star Wars community. And over the years, slow pen and paper have replaced with today's swift computers, making writing much easier. And being bored through a couple of COVID winters has also helped her find time to complete a series of stories, one of which was the Tower of the Deep series. And now she continues to write fictional fantasies for young readers, in which creative dreams intertwine with biblical truth to create allegorical visions. And in today's interview, we'll be talking about her upcoming book, which will be launching next week. So without further ado, let's give a huge round of applause to returning guest, author Heidi Richardson. Heidi, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm really glad to be back on and seeing your face again.
Awesome, Heidi. Awesome. So, would you like to share with our viewers and listeners the book we will be talking about today?
Yes. So, you want me to just hold it up again
Yes, please.
so they can see?
See the beautiful artwork? There it is.
This
Amazing.
is my daughter's cover art. And she does both front and back for me, and she also does the inside pictures for the kids. So this is the baby Ogopogo that my character comes across and tries to save.
Nice. Absolutely love it.
And this is a picture of my character talking to a man she meets. And he also
amazing.
He helps her save the Ogopogo too. So she's
awesome.
My character is 11 years old, and she's at Green Bay Bible Camp. Green Bay is part of the Okanagan Lake in British Columbia. For those of you who don't know where it is. And Ogopogo is a creature who supposedly lives in the Okanagan Lake.
Nice. Absolutely love it. And correct me if I'm wrong, the last time I had you back on the show, weren't you, or did you not write a short story about, or in the process of writing, like a Bigfoot young adult cryptid story, if I'm not mistaken, or folk story?
Yes. The Bigfoot story came out in February. And it's the same size and shape of book as this. And I also got my daughter to do the illustrations for that one as well. And it sold really well in this cafe that was called the Backwoods Cafe, and it had a Sasquatch on its sign. So I sold quite a few Bigfoot books there. But yes, my daughter is getting to have quite a portfolio of pictures under her belt, so that's good. And this is my second Weird Canadian Tale. Bigfoot was the first Weird Canadian Tale. This is the second. And there are several monsters in Canada, so I'll probably be putting out quite a few of them. So.
Nice. Very, very cool, Heidi. And honestly, it's really, really nice to see, because I don't think I've even seen, like, even here in the States, I don't think I've ever seen a book on a cryptid that was geared towards children or young adults. So that is really, really cool. So let's dive into the creation of this second book. So after the success of Bigfoot, why did you choose this particular Canadian monster to be the second character in the sequel?
Well, the obvious answer is that I already had a short story that I had written about our trips to the Okanagan Lake, and yeah, so I just kind of revamped the short story and introduced some new characters, and then I set it in the Okanagan Lake because our family had actually spent many years going to that camp. I think we went 12 years in a row when our kids were small. So like I've had boots on the ground there for many, many years, and it just kind of nicely dovetailed into a new monster because the Ogopogo lives there. So
All right, nice.
yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, my cryptid knowledge is very, very vague. But is it or is it not true that this particular Canadian monster is a very famous Canadian monster out of all of the other ones in Canada? The stories behind them, at least.
I don't know for sure. I mean, Bigfoot is fairly well known as well. It's got a lot of writing about it. And Ogopogo has a lot of writing about it, especially in British Columbia. But I'm not sure about the other ones. There might be quite a bit written about them, but I haven't researched them yet. So I'll
Okay,
have to
that's fair.
research them. Yeah, but Ogopogo is, well, I don't know how well known it is because in my progress pod, I have several people from the States, and they hadn't heard of Ogopogo. So I had to say, well, it's kind of like Canada's Loch Ness Monster. Because,
That
yeah,
is true.
they hadn't heard about him. But there's quite a bit written up in Canadian news and several other places where I researched about it. And apparently there was a photograph taken of it in 2015, I believe it was. 2015. So if you go online and you look up that documentary, there's supposedly a photograph of its head underwater.
Okay. I'll check that out. That just sounds really, really cool. So when adapting your short story into a children's book, what was your goal as the author, as well as the promise to fans and readers of the first book on Bigfoot, but also new readers who may pick up this book as their very first?
Yeah, well, the first one I wrote, I wanted to make it pretty funny, like humorous. So I put quite a bit of humor in it, funny things going on, and the characters had funny problems and overcame them in humorous ways. So this time I tried to stick to being as humorous as before. Tried to put in a few little twists and turns that would make kids laugh and a couple of cliffhanger type things. And because as a book, you can't really read it to a kid in one sitting unless you take a whole hour. So my other book was the same. So I tried to put a few little cliffhangers for parents to stop at through the book so that they can say, no, read the rest tomorrow.
Very true. Very,
Yeah.
very true. And I love the illustrations of the monster itself, which I am very curious. So, when working with your daughter, how did you guys figure out the design for this particular monster? Because I imagine, during research, there have been report of what this creature may possibly look like. So, how did you guys work together to nail the design for this book?
Well, my daughter Amber, she mostly follows my lead when I provide a description of what it looks like. So she mostly just follows the description that I put in the book. And I kind of got the head shape from that photograph in the documentary. And for the rest of it, I thought, well, what if perhaps the Ogopogo is just a dinosaur that has kind of survived into our times?
Okay.
So I kind of made it somewhat like a plesiosaur, those ones with the long necks, and then they have 4 flippers, and then they have a big long tail. So that's kind of how I visualized it. I'll show you how she drew the mother Ogopogo. Yeah.
Ooh, that is nice. That's really, really good. That's awesome.
Yeah. So she kind of took like the head shape from what I described, and then you could see with the baby Ogopogo that there's sort of a plesiosaur fin thing going on. She's got the 4 flippers like a plesiosaur.
Yes, very, very true. And almost kind of looks, looking at the baby, almost a very horse shape kind of
Yeah.
face coming along.
Yeah, that's how the old writings from like the 18th century and the 19th century, they often describe its head as a horse shape. So I kind of thought a horse and a dragon sort of maybe kind of stuck together would be a good way to visualize it. I did not look at other people's books. There have been lots of other people's Ogopogo books written, and I did not look at their art. I don't know. I guess I was too lazy.
All right, okay. And with the book coming out next week, what do you want readers to take away from this book?
Well, I just want them to have a really good time with their kids, or reading the book to them, and yeah, so the kids will just love the book and want to share it with her friends and things. And I'm hoping someday I can get into maybe libraries too, children's libraries and school libraries and things like that. But
That's awesome.
I haven't really pursued that as yet, because I'm fairly new self-publisher. So
Yes, very true. The struggle is real for us independent authors. It is
yeah,
a long and tedious grind, but it is well worth it nonetheless. So, from the going back in time a little bit, so when you were just writing the story and adapting it, and when your daughter was also getting, playing around with the illustrations and getting that right design feel for the monster itself, what was the reaction like from friends and family who learned that you guys were working together on this new book?
well, of course, they were all familiar with the Bigfoot book, and they all really liked that one. So yeah, they were pretty big fans of the new one coming out. Now I just got my new copies, so I haven't been distributing any yet. Plus, I want to hang on to the ones I ordered because I'm going to have a live event at the end of the launch. So I'm going to hang on to all my copies so I have enough for any fans that come to get one. And then I guess I'll have to order a bunch for friends and family.
Yes,
Mm.
absolutely. Very true. Very, very true. We are always going to have to get more copies for our friends and family to read. And here's actually a fan question, Heidi, that one of my viewers wanted to ask. When writing this book and working with your daughter to illustrate some of the pages, what was your favorite scene or moment from the book?
Oh my, there's so many good ones. Oh dear. I guess my favorite scene is when my character Andrea and her brother Matt and that older man there, George, they discover that Ogopogo has been captured, and so they rush off to rescue the baby Ogopogo together. So that was kind of my favorite scene, and the funny things that happen while they're trying to rescue him. And then after they rescue him, there's kind of a fun swimming scene where my character gets to go for a swim with them. So that'll probably be everybody's favorite scene.
Nice. And as a follow-up to that, from also the same viewer, what was the most challenging or difficult scene to write?
Let me see. I don't think any were very difficult that I can think of. I did have a little bit of difficulty setting up why Andrea, because my character Andrea she's kind of a special girl.
Mm.
She sees things that other people can't see.
Ooh, okay.
So I had to sort of let the audience know why she sees the Ogopogo so easily and why she meets him so quickly. So yeah, I had to give her give her kind of a special power so that she comes across the Ogopogo in a timely manner. Because I didn't want her to be searching and searching for many pages before the action starts. So
That is true. That is absolutely true. And we're all going to have that one scene that we are like, this scene could have been written better, or maybe it could go on in this direction. But that's the fun of writing. That is absolutely the fun of it. And this is actually a very cool fan question that I don't think I've gotten from any follower or for any guest. But when working with your daughter, my viewer asks, how many design iterations of Ogopogo go through until you guys decided that the current one featured in the book was the right choice?
well, let's see. This is kind of a twofold question because I guess it would sort of involve the Bigfoot book too,
Mm-hmm.
because we sort of did the same thing with him. Yeah, and I think because my daughter uses a tablet and it takes her a long, long time to actually render a drawing, we sort of do it as fast as possible. So She mostly just reads my description, and then she sends me her finished. Well, the first time in Bigfoot, she sent me her line drawings. And of course, I loved all her line drawings. There wasn't anything she did that I didn't like. And then she took those line drawings and she added the shading and texture and stuff. So she kind of did those twice. For this one, I kind of, I sort of threw her into it really fast because I wanted to have it done for my September launch. So near the beginning of July, I told her I would be needing these drawings, and she was like, well, I might be done by October. And I said, oh dear, I think I need it by September. So I could have this launch in the book fair all at the same time. So she didn't have much time. She really had to scramble to get it done in time. So I very much appreciate her putting in all that time for me and getting it done. So we didn't have time. She just did the drawings. She sent them, and I said, they're all beautiful. And I put them in, and yeah.
Nice.
Here's a drawing of the guys who are capturing.
Ooh. Again, your daughter's illustrations are really, really good. They are really, really eye-catching and really pull the reader into this story that you guys have created and brought to life, which is amazing and absolutely incredible. Now, you're welcome. Now, jumping ahead, as you mentioned before, that this was initially a short story of Ogopogo before you decided to expand it into a full-fledged story. Were there any challenges in adapting a short story into a full-on children's story?
Yeah, actually, it was very challenging because the original short story actually featured not an Ogopogo, but it was a kind of like a mermaid, sort of a mermaid character in the original story. But a mermaid character is not really part of Canada's monster collection.
Right.
So I sort of tossed out the mermaid and went for something that is, unique to Canada. So that was a bit of a challenge, but I figured the short story had to do with a young girl, and it had to do with something only she sees, and it had to do with a lot of water. So I just adapted it from the mermaid in the ocean and made it into the Ogopogo in the lake.
Okay, all right. Nice.
So, yeah, it was kind of a rewrite.
That's fair. That is fair. Yeah. I know the feeling as well. I am taking a short story that I wrote. It was 2,000 words, and I'm expanding it into a full-fledged novel. And the short story I'm using as the prologue, that is the setup, and then just building around it. It is a challenge. I will agree, Heidi. It is a challenge. But again, it is fun to experiment and create and see what we can ultimately write. Now, this goes into another question that almost we mentioned about earlier before the interview, and that was, of course, AI and what that means for authors and illustrators. And as you mentioned off camera, your daughter expressed her concern that AI was going to take away the jobs of illustrators when it comes to creating. And while I do agree that that is a present concern, I would also have to agree that AI is going to dwindle away in the terms of being used to write or create or artwork in the sense of
Mhm.
it's trying to give that sense of creativity. Now, AI is always going to be in the industry no matter what. We cannot change that, but it's how we use it as a tool. For me, as an author, I use it as a tool to help refine my outlines, my plot synopsises, and so forth. I do not use it to write stories because I want to showcase my voice. Just I imagine you, Heidi, agree that you want to showcase your work and also highlight your daughter's work as well. So, for both of you creatives, what are your thoughts on artificial intelligence mingling with the creative process?
Yeah, I remember the last time you interviewed me, you said, "What piece of advice have you got for writers?" And I said, "Never, ever, ever use AI to write your book."
Yes, which is still true. That is still true.
Yeah. So, yes, I would say every author who approaches a project, every author is absolutely unique. Like, there's no other Gabriels in the world, there's no other me's in the world. Every author is totally unique, and they have a unique voice. And if they don't use that voice, it's not going to be set apart from, other bland things that AI comes up with. Like, I use AI for my book marketing to make up
Mm-hmm.
taglines and, like you said, synopsises and things like that. But to actually write not in your own voice, I think is kind of a deception, I would think. I don't know.
Well, that is very, very true. I do think, again, it ties back to how we use AI as a tool. As you mentioned just now, Heidi, you use it for bookmarking, which I think is a very good use of the tool to spread awareness. I am still playing around with it as well in terms of marketing, but I think we can both agree, and something I think your daughter will also agree, is that when it comes to creating the book or making artwork, it should be human first to showcase the human side because AI will always try to replicate and possibly imitate, but it will never be anything than just a pretender, a mimicker.
Yeah.
Human voices, human talent will always be superior. And that kind of leads now into the business side of being an author, which I think we touched about in our first interview. Now, as a follow up, when writing this children's book, um, what were some of the well, first off, what was some of the fascinating things you've learned about publishing a children's story in the industry, either researching or seeing the trend with other authors or listening? And secondly, is there anything you would have done differently in terms of writing the book, getting the book ready for launch, or illustration wise, anything at all?
Yeah, there's a difference in the way I did Bigfoot and the way I did this one for the formatting.
Mm.
The first time when I did Bigfoot, I did the ebook first and the print book after. Now this time when I did it, I did the print book first and the ebook after. So the ebook, I used what they call the print replica in the Kindle Create program. It's called a print replica,
Mm.
I think is what it's called. And it just takes your print book and it makes an ebook that looks exactly like it. So the first one is kind of, the ebook does not look like the print book. So then I was wondering, well, should I change one of them? Because it's harder to fix your illustration when you don't use the print replica, because the ebook will shuffle your illustrations
Yes,
around.
very true. Absolutely.
So, but then I heard back from someone who said that the words are very small on the print replica when they look on their phone. So now I'm not sure which one is best.
It's trial and error as authors. I've experienced the exact same thing when it came to publishing my ebooks, that either they were off-centered or the illustrations were not properly formatted. It's a hit or a miss sometimes, and that's the thing about us indie authors, is that it's all on us. We have to be the ones to experiment. We have to be the ones to see what works, what doesn't. And the beautiful thing is, as indie authors, we can decide when to publish our books and in what capacity to publish them, either in print form, ebook form, or mixture of both. Now, another thing about the business side, which I think we may have mentioned earlier, maybe we can go into more detail, is of course understanding the audience and who to market for. Now, referencing your Towers of the Deep series, and I believe that's what we talked about in our first interview, you already had a clear audience in mind for that series of books. Now, in regards to Bigfoot and its sequel, did you already have a good idea of your audience, or did that come about through trial and error during the writing process?
Well, I'm thinking mostly, like thinking of children, I guess mostly foremost in my mind would be my grandkids. They aren't quite old enough, because they're only 7 and 5, so they aren't quite old enough yet to probably read it for themselves. I imagine my daughter probably reads it to them.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, I kind of visualize them, and then, other kids of about the same, the ages of 9 to 12. I mean, we all know kids that are 9 to 12. So these are the kinds of kids that I have in mind when I'm writing, is the ones I know that are in this age group.
Very true. Very, very true. And also talking about the writing process and the business side, how did you make sure that when you were writing both Bigfoot and the sequel, that you were showcasing your voice, in the sense that when someone picks up your stories, either the Towers of the Deep series or Bigfoot or this book coming out next week, that they know they're picking up a book written by Heidi Richardson? They know what to expect in terms of how you tell stories.
Um, how do I know what they're expecting? Is that what you're...
Or I should say, how do you... Sorry, I'm jumping over my words, but my question is, how did you arrive at your voice, how you tell stories, so that people know what to expect when they pick up your books?
Like, how did I decide how to write?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
I think probably just based on the books that influenced me when I was a kid, mostly, especially as a kid, for the kid books. And for the teen books, I guess, yes, some of the books that I read in my teens and as a young adult, those ones that influenced me, I kind of borrowed a few of the things that I really loved about their books. Like, one writer has a lot of sensory he puts in a lot about what people are seeing and hearing and smelling, and so I like that. I like to put that in there so that the person feels like they're transported right into the scene.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess, yeah, and the basic themes of writers who influenced me is kind of, that's the same kind of things that I like to write about. It's the courage and the self-sacrifice and the working together of teens and kids, how they work together to accomplish something. And I don't really like to include superpowers per se, but I do like them to have maybe one or two special things that they do as an individual, like the main character does something as an individual, which is not a superpower, but it helps them accomplish their goals and keep on going to the end through the tough stuff, you know.
Yes, absolutely. Very true. Very,
Yeah.
very true. And now are some two fan questions, which I'm very eager to hear your thoughts on, Heidi. And this focuses on the ending of the story. So, as the author, how did you ensure that the ending for Ogopogo feels satisfying for the readers? And the second part to that, when did you know as the author when to stop writing, that the story you and your daughter had worked on together was finished, it was done, there was nothing left to write about?
Well, that's a huge topic that you could spend hours talking on.
Yes, that is very true.
Well, when it comes to these books for younger kids, usually the formula is your character is just going along, having a great time, you know, doing what they want to do. And then all of a sudden, something new gets introduced, like there's either a problem plops down on top of them, and they have to figure out how to solve the problem, like in the Bigfoot book. He kind of plops down on top of them and he won't leave. So that's the problem that they have to deal with. In the second book, she's enjoying herself at camp, and then all of a sudden she meets this Ogopogo. So that's the meeting that happened. And then the problem plops down. Somebody captures the Ogopogo and she wants to free him. So you've got your character having a good time, and you have your problem that plops down, and then they have to figure out how to solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then they solve the problem, and then that's your satisfying ending, because the problem is solved. And everybody goes on, and the Ogopogo is free, and the Bigfoot is sent away, and that's where you quit once the problem is solved.
Very true. Very, very true. And ultimately, as an author, how do you make sure that all your endings and all your books feel satisfying for the reader?
Well, you have to make sure that you've solved all the problems and you've gathered up all the little loose ends, and make sure there's no dangling loose ends that your reader's going to say, well, what happened there? Because I have come across books with the loose ends, and then I think, well, I sure wish I knew what would happen to so-and-so after he did such and such, because the author didn't tell me. So for kids especially, I think you need to you need to make it fairly concrete. Like it has a concrete ending. You don't leave anything ambiguous laying about. It's okay for adults or teens sometimes to have a bit of ambiguous things, but for younger kids, they just want to know what happened.
Absolutely. Very true. Very,
Yeah.
very true, Heidi.
Yeah.
And with all that said, we now arrive at the final two questions of this amazing author interview. And the first question is, and I think you mentioned this earlier before, but maybe you can give more details. What is your piece of advice, your word of wisdom to fellow writers and authors who want to get into the publishing industry and possibly write for children's stories?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is just to make sure you learn your craft. And the best way to make sure you're doing that is to read author books on the craft, like how to write a book kind of things, titles. And also you should, I think it's very important to have your beta readers, because when I started Tower of the Deep and I got the first bit written and I gave it to my daughters as my beta readers, and they came up with all kinds of things that I would never have noticed, because they're closer to the age group I was writing for.
Right.
And I was quite a far ways from the age group. So they picked out a lot of things that they said would be like puzzling or too emotional or even in some cases inappropriate for that age. And yeah, so you very much have to have beta readers to show you what you're doing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they did a lot of. They not only helped me with the actual overall themes, but they also pointed out like the sentence structures and things that weren't going well. And that for me, that was very helpful, because you might think that you're being very straightforward in what you're writing, but if you don't have a beta reader, there might be things in your book that are just going over your readers' heads.
Very true. Absolutely. Very true,
Yeah.
Heidi. And the final question of this amazing interview is this. At the end of the day, apologies, what do you want readers to take away from not just this book coming out next week, but all your stories that you've written?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to answer that question in a literary way. So I kind of equate it to, how when you're listening to some music that you really like,
Yes.
and you're listening to it, and you get to those passages that they're so piercingly beautiful and piercingly apropos, that it gives you an emotional response
Yes.
when you're listening. That's kind of what I want to do with my writing. I want to write certain phrases and certain themes that will evoke an emotional response from the reader, like where they'll stop and say, "Oh, she knows," or "She gets me," or like, "That's exactly what I've experienced," or that kind of thing that just kind of pierces them. with something that they'll take away from it forever. That's kind of what I'm looking for when I write.
Very true. Beautifully said, Heidi. And with that, viewers and listeners, we conclude this amazing, incredible, and beautiful author interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I want to give a huge thank you to my friend Heidi Richardson for coming back on the show and telling us all about her latest book coming out next week. Now, Heidi, once again, thank you so much for coming on the show. Again, I really appreciate it. And where can people find you if they want to connect and reach out, as well as purchase a copy of Ogobogo?
Right. Well, I still have a web page, so they can still go to my web page and they'll find all things Heidi there, and all my links and all my social links. So to find my web page, you just have to type into the search bar H-M-Rich, R-I-C-H, dot, mailer page. For mailer, that's like M-A-I-L-E-R page, dot I-O. So if you put that into the search bar, you'll get to my web page and you'll find everything there.
Awesome. I will link all those down below in the description of this video. And if you want to watch Heidi's first interview on the show, I will also tag it up here for you to watch and listen. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another amazing, incredible author interview here on the show. A huge thank you again to Heidi for coming back and telling us all about her newest book. I am so excited for her and for her daughter, and I wish them the very best. And as always, viewers and listeners, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to stay up to date with all new episodes, all new details coming soon. And until next time, this is the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill signing out, wishing you all a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. See you all in the next episode.